風風装置もレベル1レベル2ついにレベル3だぜ。
Hello everybody, Megazord X here. I'm back at it again to give you all another exciting episode review over Dr. Stone, and this time I'm going to be reviewing episode 21, Spartan Crafts Club. And if you hadn't already watched last week's episode review over episode 20, you can go ahead and click that card in the corner and check that video out, and then come back and check this one though. But overall, I gotta say, this episode, man, this is probably one of the most scientific episodes we had in quite some time, based upon the past few episodes that we got. That was a little bit more on the action side, but now we're in the thick of things now with the core of the science thing, and with some of the inventions they had to create with this, we got to see, some really cool things that honestly it's kind of hard to wrap our minds around, of how they're able to create these certain inventions back again in the Stone Age with the limited materials that they have. And we get to see for the first time Senku basically facing another obstacle in his path, and we got to see essentially how he managed to kind of rebound with that. And it was thanks to Suika managed to come save the day once again and be able to help Senku push beyond his limits essentially, and be able to go further within his plans in order to basically help create inventions that will help them fight against Sakasa Empire, as they'll be closely approaching after the winter's over and we're transitioning into the spring. But yeah, so without any further ado, let's go ahead and dive straight up into this episode review of Dr. Stone.
ぶっ倒れてる場合じゃねえぞ。こっから携帯完成までの道のりは難易度超絶アップの工作がアホほどあるからね。やべえ。スパルタ工作クラブの始まりだ。そそるぜこれは。ゼロに達して今をかけて流れる赤い血のよ、背を引いて殻を割って咲いた花の模様をつなげてし筆を持って取り戻してく命、目に見えないルレがリコリコルを探しに行く。
So starting at the very beginning of the episode, you just get a little mini recap of those last ending moments of what happened in the previous episode, and we figure out that Chrome, along with the craftsmen, they basically created that water wheel, and Senku basically took the tech that they did for making electricity with with the copper and how they had to spin those things around, essentially fuse those two together, and basically now we have hydroelectric energy. So now you don't have to have Kinro and Genro busting their butts off spinning that machine around, because now they can harness the power of nature, so now they don't have to work nearly as hard. And with the advancement of technology, even within today's time, if you're able to have certain stuff work automatically for you to do XYZ, now you can shift your focus into some other tasks that could require your attention as well. So now you're almost in a way sort of kind of multitasking, and we get to see kind of the first developments with this though. But one of the first things Senku says the next thing that they needed to create was batteries, since Chrome and the craftsmen gave them the opportunity to create the hydroelectric power. So you get to see them kind of making some like glass containers and using like the acid that they got within like the previous some episodes ago, and basically creating these batteries to be able to store and hold all of that extra electricity that they're basically creating, so none of it goes to waste, because you want to use every little bit of resources that you have available. And however, with them creating the batteries, they then decided, all right, now let's actually create some light bulbs. And and Gin was kind of looking at him like, man, this dude really doing some crazy stuff that he honestly never thought he would be able to manage to kind of pull off in his time zone though. But this is Senku who we're talking about, and this is a shonen anime, so gosh darn it, we're gonna get these light bulbs made. So anyway, Senku and Chrome and the craftsmen started to work around and try to attempt with making the light bulbs. However, the light bulbs were basically blowing up because, there's like a little bit of like a sort of kind of like a filament sort of kind of thing that basically, has the current running through it. And if it got too hot and it started to burn out, it will burn the thing out. Like, for example, you might have a light bulb in your house, and then some people may have seen like a light bulb actually like go out, like just burn out, and then there's light 1 second and burns out the other second. That's because eventually that thing will eventually burn out over time, but there's a way to improve it, so that way there's it'll wind up lasting longer, but we'll get to that little part down in the episode a little further on in this review though. But anyway, as they were kind of experimenting with these light bulbs, you got to see like a scene of everybody in the village, you know, kind of going throughout their preparations, preparing for the winter. Like you saw some of the women gathering, you know, fruits and materials and any other items that they needed for the long enduring winter. And then you also got to see Kohaku on the side training with Kinro and Ginro, because now that they're not required so much to help with the scientific stuff, they can, you know, Kohaku can basically help train them and try to, you know, get their skills up, so that way when the battle does come against Tsukasa's empire, they'll be ready for it. So with the advancement in technology, they were able to shift some focus into some other areas as well. And you just got to see, you know, everybody kind of having like a cool, fun time, you know, preparing for the winter and everything else. And it was kind of like a nice little chill down moment in the episode. It was just kind of nice to, you know, be able to see the different characters interacting with one another, gathering these materials, and just taking in all the scenes with the natures and stuff. It was just a nice little calming point within the episode. Then Senku started to make some advancements with the light bulb, and we figured out that basically the light bulb was basically burning out, and they needed to find a way to make sure that that filament within there wasn't essentially burning out. And they figured out that, hey, you know, if there was no oxygen, no matter how hot that thing gets, because it got like several thousand degrees hot, no matter how hot it could get, it will prevent it from basically burning out, and it will last so much longer than what it is right now. So they used some mercury and some other kind of stuff, and they basically created a vacuum within the light bulb. And that's essentially how they created their first light bulb. And if you ever actually manage to take a light bulb and like just bust it and bust it against the ground or something like that, that's why it makes that like miniature explosion sort of kind of, because there's essentially like no air within one of those light bulbs. So that explains why you hear that little like mini explosion whenever you bust a light bulb like that. So it's kind of interesting to see how they managed to actually scientifically explain how light bulbs work in this episode. And there's one thing that I really liked about this episode as a whole though. And then we get to see a nice little touching moment that Senku basically took advantage of with the light bulbs, because he basically said, you know what, we got to get this, you know, this project done, make all these light bulbs and get it done with. And at first we're kind of figuring out like, wait, why is he sort of kind of pushing the agenda a little bit? So he basically had like a bunch of different village people kind of come over here to this big old tree, and they're all gathering around today, and they're like, hey, what do you got to show off? And then Senku's like, all right, let's go ahead and show this stuff off, craftsman. And he flicks the switch on, and then you see all these light bulbs light up, and it was snowing and everything. You kind of got this like nice little winter effect and everything. Everything looked really nice and really well animated, and just the art style of everything just looked really nice, the way how it lit up the tree and everything else though. And that was kind of like their first display showing of how, you know, the light bulbs were actually being, you know, put into place and actually in use. And it was really nice to see all of this. And then Gin pointed out, say, you know what? It is Christmas Day, isn't it? And then Senku was like, oh yeah, I guess the timing sort of kind of worked out as well. And he basically sort of kind of knew that he was trying to, you know, basically light up that tree and stuff to kind of give that Christmassy feel like that. And the timing of this episode at the point of when this is releasing is really good, because literally this episode is releasing like a week before Thanksgiving, and you know, the day after Thanksgiving, that's when the Christmas stuff really starts to take off. So yeah, this episode definitely came and released at the right time in terms of, you know, giving that sort of kind of Christmassy kind of holiday kind of feeling within this episode though. So that was something I really enjoyed from this. And then next we get to see Chrome show off his exploring side of his nature, because essentially at this point, you know, they managed to accomplish the light bulb, but you know, making one new thing isn't, you know, the style of Senku. He always wants to kind of advance, you know, whatever he had made, try to make it better or make a better version of it. And essentially Chrome at this point was like, you know what, hey, there might be some more materials that we might need, so I'm going to go out exploring and try to find some more things, because we figured out within Chrome's nature, he's more the explorer and Senku's more like the pure scientist. Even though Chrome, you know, messes with some scientists a little bit more, he really likes the aspect of exploring, and hence why we have all these different materials that Senku basically was able to use to make like the cure-all drug with Ruri and a lot of other different materials and stuff. It was all thanks to Chrome with his explorer mentality, so to say. So essentially Chrome goes off and tries to find some more stuff, and in the meantime Senku says, hey, you know what, the next thing we're gonna make are called vacuum tubes, which is basically an upgraded version of the previous light bulb. And this vacuum tube is going to be a little bit different, because it's going to be able to allow you kind of shift the electrons, you know, to different sides of the bulb. And it's kind of like one of the basic things that Senku noted that they're gonna basically need to create in order for them to be able to actually make the cell phones that they want to acquire. But however, they were running into some issues, and this is where we gonna get to see Senku kind of face some adversity within this episode, because at first there were little parts within the light bulb that were basically, you had these previous filaments, and they were basically like expanding or shifting or, you know, moving around and such, to where it basically cracked it, the base structure of it, and thus, you know, cracked the whole entire light bulb. And they managed to kind of find a way to get around that issue though. But then the major issue was that the fact that the bamboo filaments weren't strong enough to heat, you know, had that heat resistant to keep it from breaking. And that was the major flaw of these vacuum tubes. And then essentially Senku was kind of looking through all the materials that they had, that Chrome basically gathered, and figured out and said, hey, you know, we're basically out of materials that could be able to be able to tolerate this much amount of heat, to where we can be able to create these vacuums. So now we just basically hit a big old wall, and it doesn't seem like I can get any further with that. And if he wasn't able to create these vacuum tubes, he wouldn't be able to create the cell phone. So then he was kind of stuck, and he was kind of beating himself up like, dang, what am I gonna do now? And then this was a little small moment where we saw Suika, and Suika, you know, can, you know, understand and read the moods of everybody pretty well, as we've seen in the past episodes. And even though she's not like a rock expert, she's no geologist or nothing like that, she still wanted to help Senku out. So she was just kind of going through the items that Chrome has, you know, gather up once he came back with some extra materials and stuff. And she was just kind of going through the stuff and trying to figure out, you know, is there some kind of material that we missed or overlooked or something that can help, you know, Senku create this vacuum tube in order to make the cell phones. And then we get the next little scene where, you know, Senku was basically kind of, you know, sleeping in the middle of the night, and then Gin popped out of nowhere, kind of gave Senku a little mini scare or whatnot though. But he said, hey, you know what, it's the start of the new year, and instead of us, you know, beating ourselves up and bogging ourselves down, you know, with Senku, you know, hitting the wall with making that vacuum tube, you know what, it's good to keep the morale high within our group. So let's do something nice or fun or a change of pace. So let's bring in the new year right, and let's go ahead and watch the sunrise together. So, you know, Gin, along with Senku, and along with many of the others of the village people, they basically went up on top of a hill, and they were watching the sunrise. And as the sunrise was coming up, there was a stone that Suika was bringing with her, as, you know, she was previously was kind of, you know, going through all of the different rocks to see if she can find a way to help Senku. Anyway, one of the rocks started to glow within her hand, and, you know, Senku started looking at her like, whoa, it's like, wait a minute, that's something I never actually managed to see before. And basically, Suika managed to find an ultra rare gemstone that glows blue due to the ultraviolet light that is invisible. But this light was basically peaked at sunrise for the ultraviolet light. So this gemstone is used in modern filaments and can be found in the periodic table underneath, you know, the atomic number 74, called tungsten. And it's one of the strongest metals on the earth. So the matter of fact that Suika managed to basically find this, it was the combination of Suika, you know, bringing that stone or that gemstone up to the hill with them to see the sunrise, for them to be able to recognize, say, hey, you know what, this has some very unique properties that they're easily overlooked. But also with the tag team effort with Chrome, you know, the Chrome being the one that actually gathered the extra materials, so he managed to actually strike upon something new that was easily overlooked. And it was thanks to him and the combination of Suika that basically brought the light of day to Senku, saying, hey, you know what, we did not hit a wall, and we do have the materials where we can still make these vacuum tubes, so don't count us out just yet. So it was nice to be able to see, you know, Senku basically overcome this thanks to, you know, the relationship with him and his friends and everything else. And then essentially, you know, that one little piece that Suika managed to find, that wasn't going to be enough for them to make those light bulbs. So they need to go back to the source of where Chrome essentially found all of that material. And essentially, you know, he only had like enough, you know, exploration kind of equipment for Senku as well as Chrome to go, but they only had room enough for one extra person. And this was kind of funny to see how they basically had like this little scene where they had like a bunch of a bunch of the characters that, you know, part of our main cast of characters, and it was kind of going through like a menu screen of like how you choose a character, about to go into a party like within a video game, so to say, like in your typical RPG, and you know, you're just kind of scrolling through and seeing which ones had like certain different attributes or what kind of certain skills that they had. It was kind of funny just seeing that go by, as you know, you got like a little quick recap of seeing, you know, which kind of character might be willing to go with Senku and Chrome to find this gemstone. And eventually they came down to the decision that said, hey, you know what, we need your help, Magma, because you're going to have the raw strength to be able to help us pull this material out, because this stuff ain't weak. This stuff is really strong, so we're going to need some muscle power to kind of muscle out and, you know, gather up all of these gemstones. And that is essentially where the episode ended at. So overall, I really like this episode, and as a matter of fact, they're able to squeeze this much, you know, science information within an episode, and do it in such a way where it's not actually boring, but it's really insightful, and you're able to apply this knowledge that they basically kind of teach you within the episode with stuff that you're kind of dealing with modern times, such as like the whole entire light bulb thing. You know, now I have like a greater appreciation of the light bulb, and basically how, you know, because there was one moment where I was busting a light bulb to try to fit it into like into one of my like trash dumpsters, and it kind of explained why it makes that big old like exploding sound whenever you bust open a light bulb like that. It's just little things like that that makes me have like a great appreciation for this anime, and the fact that it's a shonen, but it's not your typical shonen, so you never know exactly what you're gonna get in terms of a new episode of Dr. Stone. And that's just one of the things I've purely been enjoying for this whole entire series, though. But now we only got 3 more episodes to go, so we're getting near the very end of this, though. So we just gotta hang in tight and just see what all else has to that Dr. Stone has to offer with this anime, though. But that is about it for my review. So if you really like this video, go ahead and hit that like button, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and that bell to keep up to date on all things Dr. Stone I am currently reviewing. So make sure to tune in next time for my Dr. Stone episode 22 review, The Treasure. So remember, y'all, until whatever video I make next, see y'all.
私ではない。
指名があれば
やだな。呼ばれちゃったら。
わしでもいいけど。
洞窟にメンタリスト。マグマ。
お。
クソほど家庭怪獣石取るにはバカ力がいる。仲良し探検隊トリオで潜りに行こうじゃねえか。